Hello and welcome to today's session. My name is Madhur Singh, and today in this session I will be talking about one of the most commonly asked questions about studying abroad, that is about the English Proficiency Test. So in this session I'll be decluttering all the stuff, all the things, all the questions that are about English Proficiency Tests. So along the way, if you have any doubts in this session, you come across any questions that come to your mind, you can put them in the chat box below and my team will be more than happy to answer all your questions. So without any further ado, let's get started with the agenda of the session. So firstly, I'll be talking about the introduction to these English proficiency tests that are there. Secondly, I'll talk about what are the types of English proficiency tests are there for studying abroad. Then I'll also talk about the English proficiency tests for the English learners that are there, that is TOEFL, IELTS and DET. So I'll talk about its overview in general, what is the registration steps, also about the scoring and the interpretation of it. So all these things I will be talking about in detail. Then I'll also talk about some of the various tips that are required to study for these tests, right? The preparation setup, how should you do it? What are the ways in which you can optimize your study? So all these things I will be covering in this particular session, right? Then we'll also talk about, is it really important to give these English proficiency tests? Is it important? What is the relevance? What are the universities that will be accepting these scores from these tests, right? So all these things are important to know before you are starting to study for these tests, right? So as a bonus tip also, I will be telling you that is there a way in which you can bypass all these tests and directly get an admission outside abroad? Is there a way in which you can study abroad without even giving these tests? Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. But for that, you have to stay till the very end because I will be giving you that bonus tip. I will be giving you that bonus thing in which you can bypass all these things and directly take admission to your dream college without even sitting for these tests. What is that? Stay tuned till the very end, right? So when we talk about these things, right, when we talk about these tests, first we need to understand why is it important to give this test, right? Why do you need to study abroad? So with that, the thought, why is it actually important that you should study abroad? Now, you must be either someone who is an undergrad student, right? Or you are just out of college, you are a fresher, or you are someone who is seasoned in the corporate world, who have some years of experience, but only had his undergrad degree, right? Now, in any of these cases, now let me tell you that it is very important to have a second degree. It is very important to have a master's degree. Why is that the case? I'll give you a simple example. So during the COVID times, right, post-COVID, we saw a lot of companies, they were cutting down on their employees, right? They were firing left, right and center. So in that case, the one who actually survived the storm were the ones who had a higher education. What does higher education represent? It represents the depth of knowledge of your particular domain. That is the reason why it is important to have a higher education degree. So in that case, what is the optimum thing to have that degree from? Is it that you want to do in India, or you want to do it outside of India? You want to do it abroad. So what are the reasons you should consider while you are studying abroad? What is the compelling thing to consider when you are choosing the college outside of India, right? So in that case, in that scenario, the first and the foremost important aspect is you should look at what is the advantage of studying abroad. What are the factors to consider, right? So the first one would be the world-class faculties that are there outside, right? You talk about US, you talk about Europe. So in all these cases, you get best-in-class faculties. They have in-depth research about the domain in which they are currently researching, or they are faculties of, they are professors of. They have in-depth knowledge. They have numerous research publications. They have the best technology available to them to do their research, right? So that is world-class faculty you would be getting if you are going outside of India. Then comes networking opportunities. So studying abroad has also these benefits in which you will be interacting with a lot of different people globally, right? For example, if I take example of the US, you're doing masters in US, you would have a lot of international exposure, right? Why is it important? It will make your career growth significantly important. Why? Because at times you would be involved in a lot of complex projects in which this diversity, this global exposure is a thing that would help you. That's why networking opportunities is a very good established in the US. Then comes the flexibility in course structure, right? This is something that really intrigues me as well in terms of why it is important for me or for anyone else to study abroad, consider studying abroad, is the flexibility in the course structure. For example, let's say you're picking up a domain of data science, right? And you want to include artificial intelligence, you want to include some of the, let's say, courses on different other domains, right? You like aerospace engineering, maybe, right? You want to have your master's in data science, but also want to study of aerospace or robotics for that matter. So yes, there will be some courses that would be mandatory courses, but most of the other courses will be the course that you would select for depending on your passion. That would be the elective courses, right? You can combine those courses into your own course structure for your specializations, right? Normally, what the degree you will get is of masters in, let's say, data science, but the things will be, there will be some mandatory courses and the ones that you will choose according to your passion, right? So that flexibility is the thing that is really good when you're studying abroad. Then comes the diversity in the culture. I also already talked about it, that the global exposure you get people from all across the globe at one single campus. Someone sitting right next to you in your class there would be of a completely different background. He or she would have different sort of opinions about what the current topic would be, right? You get different sort of viewpoints when you're solving a complex problem in your class. So that is the diversity in terms of culture, in terms of the technical expertise they bring on the table. Then comes the advanced technology and resources, right? That's also one of the most important aspects, that if you're studying abroad, you would definitely have better resources to research or implement anything or find any innovations out there, right? You would have better access to the technology. That's a proven fact. So that's why it's also important to consider these elements while you are studying abroad, right? So with that, let's just stick to the core. This was the reasoning why it is important to give these English proficiency tests, right? For studying abroad, you need basically two important tests. One is the graduate aptitude test, that is a GRE GMAT, and the second most important one, that is even more important than the graduate ones, are the English proficiency tests. So all these tests that are there of English proficiency, they are basically the qualifying exams for these universities. They are basically English. They test your English understanding capabilities. It also helps in determining for the college that what type of student you are, right? How good you are in English in terms of understanding it, right? Because at the end of the day, if you want to be the student of their university, they also have to think in these aspects, that whether the teachings that they would be providing to the students, how easy it is for them to grasp in the language English. So that is why we have these tests called English proficiency tests. So let's get started and understand why these English proficiency tests are there in the first place. Number one, again, it acts as a gateway to the global education, right? It acts as a window to outside of India. That's very, very important. So if you are going outside of India, the first thing that they ask is, how capable are you to understand the basic English language, right? So this is the reason why you have these tests, to just test out from the standpoint of the universities, how capable are you in speaking, reading, listening, understanding the language English. So that's why we have the test there. So cultural enrichment and academic excellence, right? So this is also very, very important aspect, that it would be easier for you to adapt to the people who are around you in the campus, right? If they speak a common language, right? So that is why English becomes that medium for you to communicate, to build that cultural network around your own campus, right? So that's why it is important. Then is English proficiency tests are a crucial component, because it tests the various matrices. What are these matrices? It is language proficiency, academic readiness. How ready are you in terms of understanding and grasping what the university would be explaining, right? It is easier for you to understand in the language that you know, right? Imagine if these tests were not there and someone who would have no experience in understanding English, because that would not be their first language, first medium of understanding, it would be very difficult for them to understand any English medium course, right? So in that case, for that particular reason, these tests are there so that they can identify who is the right set of students for them, who can understand what they are teaching more efficiently. Because at the end of the day, they also care about what you are. They also care about how your career is going. So in that case, you have to make sure that these tests is the one that you give before you are even thinking of going outside of India, right? So these are the ones. Second is, what are the type of English proficiency tests that are out there, right? What are the different types of tests? Number one is test of English as a foreign language, known as TOEFL. So this particular test is one of the most popular ones that are out there. So if you are thinking of going outside of India, you either consider two of these tests. One is TOEFL and IELTS. These are the most popular ones and the most historic ones, because since a very long time, these two tests are the ones that are determining the basis of getting into any university, right? So second one, I talked about IELTS, International English Language Testing System, basically tests your English, similar to as TOEFL. Then is Duolingo English Test, also called as DET. Then is PTE Academic, that is Pearson Test of English Academic, and Cambridge English Exams. So these are the different types of exams that you can opt for when you're planning to study abroad, right? But from my standpoint, the ones that are important are mainly TOEFL, IELTS, and DET. These are the ones that are really popular, and the acceptance of colleges are mostly around these three English proficiency tests. So while you're thinking to give, have these three tests in mind: TOEFL, IELTS, and DET. So the first one, let's talk about the first one, the most important one, that is TOEFL. So what is it about TOEFL that makes it such a unique test? Number one is about, so it is basically developed or organized by ETS, that is Educational Testing Service. So this is the one that conducts these tests, right? Then it is an internet based test or a paper based test. So now what is the difference between the two? I'll tell you. Paper based test is basically the one that is given paper on the mediums of paper. The second one is internet based test. Now internet based tests are divided into two parts. One is the one in which you go to the center and give the exams. Second one is you sit in the home. This is known as home IBT test, right? So these are the two ones that are there. Then paper based test for the ones that the computer would not be the first mode of to understand. So paper based test. Four sections are there: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. I'll tell you in detail what are the minutes of each sections, what are the things that are involved. I'll give you a bit more depth in that scenario. So the scores range from 0 to 120, right? Four sections are there, 30 each. So this makes up to 120. So this is the overview of this exam, overview of TOEFL. That is 120 is the maximum marks you can attain. So if I dissect this exam, so essentially four important elements: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So the score is from 0 to 30 in all the four sections. So the pattern is basically, in the reading one, you would have comprehensions, maybe two, maybe three, but you would have basically paragraphs or the comprehensions that you would have to read and answer the questions based on that. Listening one, you would have an audio played and you need to answer accordingly, right? So that is basically listening. Then is the speaking one, in which there will be four tasks in which you would have to speak or basically give a summary of what you are either reading or maybe listening. So you have to make sure that you give the correct response, correct summary out of what you are seeing or listening. So it can involve a lot of different variations to it, but this is the general essence. So you understand, right? All the elements that would be tested is: how is your reading capability, how is your listening capability, how is your speaking capability, and how is your writing capability. Is very genuine of them to ask these things, because this is something that would determine how it is easy for you to understand the language. Note that this is not something that they check for merits, right? That you have your own academic score of undergrad. That is what they're looking at. This one is to make sure that you can easily grasp the language English while the professors are teaching. So basically that why they should take you, considering this is you are ready to understand the course that they will be teaching in English. That's all. Then is the writing one. So in writing you have 0 to 30 as the score. Two tasks will be there. You have to write, you have to basically, if you're giving internet based test, you have to type the different things, type the summary out of it, type various elements, right? So you would have to basically write an article or a small paragraphs depending on the word limit that they would be giving, right? So this is basically the entire setup of the pattern that is there for TOEFL, right? So now what is the registration process for TOEFL? So it is basically you need to visit your ETS official TOEFL website, right? You can create your account there. You can select. So then you have to actually choose that whether you are opting for paper based, you are opting for online, you are opting for online, it is the test center you are opting to, or you're giving it in your home edition. Now listen to me very carefully on this one. So there are a lot of colleges that do not accept the home IBT one, right? So if it is the home IBT test, some of the universities are there in which they would not be accepting the score. I would suggest you to take the one that is internet based but in a test center. That is the one that is universally recognized as the best one to give, right? You do not have to think about the universities just in case they're not accepting. So make sure that you know about all these things beforehand, right? So I'm telling you that it is important that you should not give the home IBT one. Refrain from doing that. Take the one that is internet based, because that will help you in getting the best in terms of the visibility of school across multiple universities across the globe, right? Then complete the registration form, fill in your personal details and pay the exam fees using valid payment option. Now in this case also it is something that you have to be very proactive about. What does that mean? That means that if you want to apply, so there are two basically intakes. One is the fall intake for universities, one is the autumn, right? Spring. So in this case, so if you're opting for the fall one, right, that is the intake of September October. In that case, make sure that previous year, so the application starts from previous year November December, around that time, right? So in that case, in that regard, you have to make sure that you're giving your TOEFL or English proficiency test by October or September, right? So September October should be the time in which you should plan of giving it. Also this is valid for 2 years, so this test is absolutely valid for 2 years, so you can give it according to your convenience, but don't delay it to the time when your application process starts. So have your scores ready beforehand. Also one more thing, so if you are staying in a metropolitan city, then make sure that you are booking your test 1 month in advance, because what happens is that if you want to give test, let's say next week, right, there will be days, there will be test centers that would be there, right? It happens all across the year, so you can give the test anytime, but have 1 month in advance. With that comes two benefits. Number one, you will get to choose the center that is nearest to your place or where you are staying. Number two, if you're opting for a test just 1 week in advance, what happens in that case is that the amount, the fee payment, right, it increases. So the near to the test you are going to book, the more expensive it will be for you, right? So TOEFL currently is around 16,000 to 17,000. Taxes would be added extra, but this is the amount that you would be paying for your test. Yes, it is a very expensive test, but this is what it is, right? So in that case, what you can do is also ETS, right? They run some of the other discounts all year around, right? So make sure that when you're going to their website, you can also check on their customer care option in which to check whether they have any active scheme. So in that case, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 is the amount that can get reduced, right? This is the bonus tip no one else would give you, but I'm giving it to you, that you can actually get a discount, you have to ask there. You can reach out to them and just ask for that, whether they are running any sort of scheme in which there is a coupon that would be generated. So you can ask them, and definitely they would have some or the other in which you would have some or the other discount here and there, right? So this is something that would be there. Then you would have the confirmation. Make sure that you, okay, so it's very important to have either the passport in hand, the valid document, right? It is always better to have passport, because what is required is basically the passport size picture in your valid ID and the signature together. So that is exactly why passport is required. So in that case, make sure that you have your passport done beforehand, before you're giving the test. Otherwise, on the day of exam, if you do not have your passport, or maybe if you have applied, so maybe you can ask them that whether my application process for the passport is okay to present to give the exam or not. Any other valid ID is okay or not, right? You have to ask them beforehand. But if you have passport, then you don't need to worry about anything. On the day of exam, just take your passport with you, take the number that would be generated, your application number, and you would have just a small verification process, and you'll be good to go to give the exam. So this is all the registration process and everything that is there, right? So scoring, what type of scoring are we looking at? So in that case, we have the first one that ranges from 0 to 120. Sectional scores are there again. There are 4 sections, so 30 is the maximum marks for each section, right? Reading and listening scores are based on the number of correct answers. Speaking, the scores access pronunciation, vocabulary, and how you basically take on what is being written over there, or what is the topic that is given, right? So how well you frame your sentences is also what they will be looking at. Then it is about writing, so it's about the grammar, organization of your idea, how easy to understand it is for anyone who is reading it, right? That is what they are basically looking at. So all these things combined, it is about 2 hour long exam. So you can, earlier it used to be a bit more lengthy, but in 2023 they revised this entire thing to make it bit more compact, bit more crisp, and bit more easy for the students. So that's what is there. The second most important exam that is out there is IELTS. So it is similar to TOEFL. There is no much difference, but the conducting body is different. It is British Council and Cambridge Assessment English. So there are 2 versions of it: academic and general training. Academic is the one that you would be mostly opting for. Then 4 sections are there: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So these are the sections that you have to focus on. The score band is from 0 to 9. This is a bit different with, so basically in TOEFL also, if you would ask me what is the ideal score that you should get, right? So I would say, since it's just something that they're looking at to make you understand that, okay, this is a test, they need to know that whether you are understanding English or not. So in that case, they look anything above 85. That is something that is good to go. If you are trying to get into an Ivy League college or a college that is in top 10s, then you need a bit higher. Then you need something around 110s or something around that would do, like 100 plus is needed. But in general essence, you will get the admission in 85 plus as well, right? When considering IELTS, 7-8 is considered a good, very good score in that regard. So in IELTS, again, you have 4 sections, that is reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Reading is of 60 minutes, writing is of 60 minutes, listening is of 40 minutes, and speaking is of 10 to 14 minutes. So the exam duration is 2 hours and 45 minutes again. So the things that are in these sections remain the same for both the TOEFL and the IELTS. It does not have any difference. Again, this is test center based exam, so you can give your exam, you can book your relevant slots beforehand, right? So visit the official IELTS website, choose the academic or journal training version, select a test date and location, complete the online application form, upload a clear copy of your identification, pay the exam fee online, receive a confirmation email with the test details. So this is the entire flow of registration process that is out there. Then the scoring bands. So IELTS are reported on a scale of 0 to 9. Listening, reading, writing, speaking, they are scored independently. Each section has the range from 0 to 9. Scores are based on the correct answers, and scores are based on the criteria including vocabulary, grammar. They ideally check what is similar to of TOEFL, right? So if you have any doubts around any of this that I'm talking about, make sure to leave anything, any query in the chat box below, and my team will be more than happy to answer all your queries and to make your life easier in that regard. If you have any confusion about anything, just put it in the chat box below. Then the next one is DET, Duolingo English test. So in that case, it is, so this is a bit different. Why? Because it is completely computer based test. So in that case, so basically the thing to assess is basically the same: reading, listening, writing, and speaking, right? So this is also accepted by 4,500 universities and many firms across native and non-native English speaking countries, right? So this is more easier because just imagine if you're staying in tier 3 country that does not have access to the TOEFL centers, right? The travel would be a lot, right? In that case, to go to the city and give the exam, and that to a very expensive exam, similar what TOEFL and IELTS, right? These exam cost in thousands and thousands, so very expensive exam. So in that case, what happens is that it is bit more convenient to give it at your home. So hence Duolingo English test revolves around that. It's a very small 1 hour test, 45 minutes essentially. So this is the test that you should take if you are not in the city and staying a bit far from the city. But if you are in the city, if you have the test centers that are nearby, I would heavily suggest you to give your exams, to give anything on that regard in TOEFLs and IELTS. That's my suggestion to you right there. DET registration process. So again, visit to the website, select and schedule the test date, complete the online application form, pay the exam fees online, receive the confirmation email with the test details. So you have to so all these things, right, are comparable to all the previous ones, right? So let's have a distinction factor to it. So DET is basically 160 points. So the basic starts from 10 to 160 is what you have. Again, the sections are the same, but the way they conduct the test is bit different. So it's online. So you have different sort of sections that are there in each of these: reading, listening, writing, and speaking. So you can adapt to the versions that are there. You can give their dummy test that is online, right? So DET uses an adaptive format, adjusting questions difficulty based on your performance, right? This is exactly what I just mentioned, that in this case they have a slightly bit format, right? Depending on the difficulty, on how your performance is going in between the tests, right? So they give you the next question based on your previous question. That's exactly what it is. Total score calculation: the overall score is the sum of individual scores from the 4 sections. That is how they will judge you. Then what is the differences? So primarily internet based, with some locations offering paper based. IELTS is administered in both paper and computer based formats, conducted entirely online. That's DET. Divided into reading, all these have 4 sections. That's basically the setup for these courses. Then it typically lasts in TOEFL, it is 2 hours. IELTS is a bit more, 2 hours 45 minutes, and DET is completed in approximately 1 hour. So the frequency of tests, great flexibility. TOEFL will have much more flexibility in that regard. Limited flexibility to reschedule your test dates or to schedule your test dates is about IELTS. DET is the most flexible one. You can choose it what time of your day suits you the best, right? You would have a lot of different slots. You can pick your slots and take the test. So that's the flexibility that you get in DET. Now let me talk about the preparation trips that would be there, right? So if I have to give you tips regarding the test, number one would be the practice. The more you practice, the better it is, right? So I'll give you examples. If you're a complete beginner in English, how would you do that? So in terms of speaking, right, you can practice, you can take any topic, turn on your mobile phone camera and speak on the random topic that is there, right? That's about it. That will make you more confident before the exam, right? Number one. Number two, listening ones, right? Hear any podcast that you can hear on your mobile phone or on your laptop. Just hear any podcast, 15-minute clip or like 5-minute clip. Make the summary of what you have just heard, right? then then in these things you also have to think about time management strategies, right? Because the time is limited. So reading comprehensions you can pick up online, anywhere you can pick up reading comprehensions. You can get most of the mock tests online, how you can do it, right? So these all things you will get, right? Practice material, you do have official sources, again that is paid. I would not really suggest you to go there. You can have a lot of resources on the online platforms as well. In fact, Great Learning also have a lot of courses around TOEFL and IELTS, the link for which would be given in the chat box below. You can click on that and you can know about these courses around that, right? We have a learning platform, Great Learning Academy. You can go visit there, you can search for these courses. We have GLA Premium that would also have these courses there, right? To practice, get your practice done before the exam. Now, why is it important to practice these things beforehand? Note that this is a very expensive exam, right? It's not feasible to give this exam every month. You have to think twice to do that, right? Thrice to do that. It's not feasible to give that amount of money. So in that case, make sure that your preparation is complete before the test. So in that case, go study for these exams, give a lot of different types of mocks, and you will be good to go. These are not tough exams, they just test your basic ability to understand English. But of course, you have to, if your first language is not English, you do have to practice a bit to get good scores, right? And since they are valid for 2 years, you have to give your best in your first attempt. That's important. Then importance of these English proficiency tests, it is the admission criteria, it is the language proficiency verification, global recognition that is there, visa and immigration requirements that are there, access to the scholarship and any financial aid. Yes, so this gets a bit interesting, right? If you're applying for any master's course online and abroad and you want that particular financial aid or scholarship, then these do matter a bit, right? They do matter how well you grasp the language English. Then is program specific requirements, so it would ease out in that process as well. Career opportunities would increase when you're giving the English proficiency test. Confidence in the academic communication, right? So when you are in these universities, there will be times in which you will be attending research conferences, you'll be involved in a lot of projects, in-house projects, right? So your communication, your academic communication, that would be in English, right? So your confidence will increase in addressing your ideas in front of the team. That is very important, right? In order to have your global networking done on the campus with all the peers that are around there, the command in English is a really, really important in today's world. That is exactly the reason why it is important to give this test with full confidence. Have that thing done. I'm just suggesting you simple ways. Pick a topic, talk about it in front of the camera. That's all about it, right? So have that communication done, listen to a lot of podcasts. These are the basic steps that you can do to enhance your English, right? Then what is the preparation strategy? Official guides, they are always handy. Great learning courses, right? The Great Learning Academy courses, the preparation courses, the link to which is in the chat box. You can go click, understand that thing. So you can also enroll in any of that courses and make your understanding about this language proficiency test much better. You can practice out, you can understand what are the variations in the questions that come. So do take that course that is in the description below. Then various, you can have peer study groups that are there. You can have various learning platforms, like Great Learning Academy is one such platform that you can go explore and get your courses done, get your certifications done as well, right? So all these things get you equipped with the practice that is required for giving this English proficiency test. balancing the test preparation with other academic requirements, time management, integrated preparation. So all these things are the ones that you need to take care of when you are doing and preparing for these tests, right? Time management is essential, right? Why? Because you have limited time to answer those questions, and you cannot miss out on questions as well. So there is thankfully no negative marking as such, but you have to make sure that you are giving your best when it comes to these tests. These are very expensive exams. Make sure that you are fully ready 1 month in advance. You're ready to give this test. Yeah. So the official time, or maybe what I may say is the preparation time, usually on an average is about a month. So a month would be more than enough for you to get prepared for this particular exam. It's not a very tough exam. It is mostly understandable exam. It's not on a very tough level. Don't worry about it. Have your consistency in play when you're studying for these exams. That's important. I mentioned at the very beginning that I'll give you an extra bonus about whether it is required for you to give these tests. Now, Great Learning has their study abroad programs with universities abroad, right? In the US, in Germany, you have different types of universities that are in the format. What are the advantages? You can bypass these exams. You do not have to necessarily give these English proficiency tests, right? Wouldn't that be great that you will be saving out on money? Number two, that the courses will be in hybrid format in which most of the things you will be doing in India, then you will go abroad and have your exposure in that particular universities. The benefit of it in the fee, right? Normally if you're going abroad, that will cost you around 1 crore, right? But the hybrid setting models, the models in which you would not have to pay the amount, right? It would be approximately 50% less in the hybrid programs, right? So the normal setting, that is there, is very expensive. You get to study in that university abroad for in the programs. Some part you do it in India, some part you go abroad and complete in the university itself. That is the fascinating story about studying abroad in this particular generation that we are in the hybrid setting. So that is about it. I hope you had a wonderful session, and make sure that if you have any doubt regarding anything, just put it in the chat box and my team will be more than happy to answer to all your queries. Also about the study abroad things, the link would be in the chat box itself. Make sure that you click and understand about what these study abroad programs are. I hope you had a great learning session. Thank you so much.